I never wanted to be the person who objects at a wedding. Growing up, Emma and I were inseparable, the kind of sisters who shared everything from clothes to secrets. But standing there in my maid of honor dress, clutching a USB drive that would destroy her perfect day, I knew our relationship would never be the same. The story doesn't start at the wedding, though. It begins 6 months earlier, when I first noticed something wrong with our family business's accounts. Wilson and Daughters Manufacturing had been our father's pride and joy for 30 years. He built it from nothing, working 18-hour days while Mom raised us, until it became one of the largest custom furniture manufacturers in the Northeast. When Dad had his first heart attack 3 years ago, he decided it was time to start passing the torch. "Alexandra," he'd said, calling me into his office one autumn morning, "I need you to take over as CFO. The numbers, they're getting harder for me to track these days." He looked smaller behind his massive oak desk, the one he crafted himself when the company first turned a profit. I'd never seen him admit weakness before. I agreed immediately. My accounting degree and MBA had prepared me for this, even though I'd been working at a big firm in Boston. Moving back home felt right. Family comes first, Dad always said. Emma was thrilled when I returned. "Finally," she'd squealed, hugging me tight. "I've missed you so much, Alex." She'd been working in sales at the company since graduating college, and her natural charm made her perfect for it. When she introduced me to Michael Chen, her new boyfriend and our IT director, I was happy for her. He seemed perfect, intelligent, ambitious, and he clearly adored her. Their whirlwind romance became the talk of the company. Within 8 months, Michael had proposed with a ring that must have cost at least 3 months' salary. Emma was ecstatic. Mom was already planning the wedding, and Dad just seemed relieved that Emma had found someone who understood the business. The first red flag appeared during a routine audit. A series of transfers to an offshore account, small amounts at first, nothing that would raise immediate alarms. But they added up. I spent weeks tracking the pattern, staying late at the office, poring over financial records until my eyes burned. "You're working too hard," Emma said one night, finding me still at my desk at 9 p.m. "The wedding's in 6 months, and you haven't even helped me pick out bridesmaid dresses yet." I forced a smile, closing the spreadsheet I'd been reviewing. "You're right. Let's grab coffee tomorrow and talk dresses." But that night, after Emma left, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. The transfers had grown larger, more frequent. $2 million had vanished over the past year, disguised as vendor payments to shell companies. All the transactions had one thing in common. They were authorized using Michael's 8 admin credentials. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with possibilities. There had to be a mistake. Maybe someone had hacked Michael's access codes. Maybe there was a glitch in the system. I needed proof, concrete, undeniable evidence, before I said anything. The next few weeks were torture. I played my part, the supportive sister, the enthusiastic maid of honor, while secretly investigating. I hired a private forensic accountant, installed monitoring software, and watched as Michael continued to siphon money from the company. The security footage was the final piece. Late one night, I reviewed the cameras I had secretly installed in the server room. There he was, Michael, accessing the system directly, making transfers while everyone else had gone home. His face, lit by the blue glow of the monitor, showed no trace of guilt as he stole from the family he was about to join. I took my findings to Dad first, catching him alone in his workshop, where he still liked to tinker with new designs. "Daddy," my voice cracked. I hadn't called him that since I was little. "I need to show you something." But before I could open my laptop, he held up his hand. "If this is about the company finances, I don't want to hear it." His voice was firm. "Everything's fine, Alexandra. Michael's modernized our whole system. Profits are up. Emma's happy. Why do you always have to look for problems?" "But Dad, the money." "Enough." He slammed his hand on the workbench, making the tools rattle. "I won't let you ruin your sister's happiness with wild accusations. Not everything needs to be analyzed to death. Sometimes you just need to trust people." I tried Mom next, but she was too absorbed in wedding preparations to listen. "Oh honey," she sighed, not looking up from her seating chart, "I know it's hard seeing your little sister get married first, but this jealousy isn't healthy." Jealousy? I wanted to scream, This wasn't about jealousy, it was about watching someone systematically steal from our family while everyone turned a blind eye. The weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of bridal showers, dress fittings, and silent screaming. Every time I saw Michael with my sister, every time he smiled at our parents or made grand promises about the company's future, I felt sick. I considered going to the police, but most of the evidence I had was obtained through questionable means. Besides, by the time any investigation concluded, the money would be long gone. Michael had covered his tracks well. I had to give him credit for that. The night before the wedding, Emma came to my room like she used to when we were kids. She looked beautiful and nervous, perching on the edge of my bed in her old pajamas. "I can't believe I'm getting married tomorrow," she whispered, hugging my pillow. "Alex, I'm so happy you're my maid of honor. There's no one else I'd want standing beside me." I hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, the same kind she used since high school. My throat tight with unshed tears, I made one last attempt. "Emma, are you sure about Michael? About all of this?" She pulled back, her face darkening. "Not you two. Aunt Sarah said the same thing. It's too fast. You barely know him. I thought at least you understood." "I just want you to be happy," I said softly. "Michael makes me happy. He's perfect for me, for the family, for the business. Why can't you see that?" After she left, I sat alone in the dark, the USB drive heavy in my hand. Tomorrow would destroy everything: my relationship with my sister, my parents' trust, our family's reputation. But letting Michael get away with it would destroy something even more precious: the legacy our father had spent his life building. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. The ceremony was being held in the garden of the country club where we'd spent our summers as children. Everything was perfect: the flowers, the music, the hundreds of guests in their Sunday best. I watched Emma get ready, radiant in her white dress, our mother crying happy tears as she adjusted the veil. Michael was somewhere nearby with his groomsmen, probably rehearsing his vows, perhaps making one last transfer before he became an official part of the family. Standing in front of the mirror in my sage green bridesmaid dress, I touched the USB drive tucked into my bouquet. In a few hours, I would either be a hero or a villain, depending on who you asked. But as Dad always said, family comes first. And sometimes protecting your family means breaking their hearts. The guests were seated, the music started playing, and I took my place at the front of the aisle, waiting for the moment that would change everything. The weight of the truth pressed against my palm, hidden among the roses and baby's breath, as heavy as the future I was about to shatter. The ceremony began like a scene from a fairy tale. Emma floated down the aisle on Dad's arm, her dress catching the afternoon sunlight. Michael stood at the altar, looking every bit the perfect groom in his tailored tuxedo. If you didn't know what I knew, you'd think this was just another beautiful wedding. My hands trembled as the minister began speaking. "If anyone knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The traditional pause. My heart hammered against my ribs. Now or never. "I object." My voice rang out clearer than I expected. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Emma's face went from shock to horror to fury in a matter of seconds. Mom dropped her handkerchief. Dad started to rise from his seat, his face turning that dangerous shade of red that usually preceded an explosion. "I'm sorry," I continued, stepping forward, my legs shaking beneath my dress. "But I can't let this wedding continue without the truth being known." I pulled a USB drive from my bouquet and walked to the tech station where Michael's best man had set up a laptop and projector for the reception slideshow. "Alex, don't you dare." Emma's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't ruin this for me." Michael's face had gone completely blank, the practiced stillness of someone who knows they've been caught but is calculating their next move. His eyes darted to the exit, then back to me. "Your husband-to-be has been stealing from our family business," I announced, my voice carrying across the garden. $2 million transferred to offshore accounts over the past year. My fingers flew over the laptop keyboard, pulling up the evidence I'd gathered. The projector hummed to life, displaying financial records on the white backdrop behind the altar. "These are the transaction records," I continued, switching to the next slide. "All authorized using Michael's credentials." Someone in the back row swore loudly. Aunt Sarah started whispering frantically to Uncle Bob. My mother had both hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. And here, I said, pulling up the security footage, is Michael making these transfers after hours when he thought no one was watching. The video played in brutal clarity, Michael in the server room, methodically draining our family's legacy into his private accounts. The timestamp was clearly visible, his face illuminated by the monitor's glow. Emma had gone deathly pale, her bouquet slipping from nerveless fingers. Michael? Her voice was small, uncertain. Tell them she's lying. Tell them this is some kind of mistake. But Michael was already moving. He shoved past the minister, leaping down from the altar. Two of my cousins tried to grab him, but he was too quick. He sprinted down the aisle as chaos erupted. Stop him. Dad's voice boomed over the commotion. He was on his feet now, all traces of denial gone as he watched his almost son-in-law flee with $2 million of his money. The groomsmen reacted first, running after Michael. Uncle Bob, a former track star despite his age, cut across the garden and managed to tackle him just before he reached the parking lot. They went down in a tangle of tuxedos and crushed flowers. I stayed where I was, watching as my perfect sister's perfect wedding dissolved into perfect chaos. The guests were on their feet, some rushing to help detain Michael, others clustering in shocked groups to gossip. Mom had collapsed into her chair, while Dad was already on the phone with the police, his face purple with rage. Emma stood frozen at the altar, staring at the final frame of security footage still projected behind her. Her wedding dress suddenly seemed too big, too white, too much. Then she turned to me, and the look in her eyes made me take a step back. You, she hissed, advancing on me. You couldn't let me have this one thing, could you? You couldn't just be happy for me? Emma, he was stealing from us. You could have told me privately, she screamed, her voice raw. You could have shown me this yesterday, last week, any time before I was standing here in front of everyone we know. But no, you had to make a spectacle of it. You had to humiliate me. I tried to tell you, I protested. I tried to tell everyone, but nobody would listen. She slapped me. The sound cracked across the garden, silencing the murmuring crowds. My cheeks stung, but not as much as the hatred in my sister's eyes. I will never forgive you for this, she whispered. Then she gathered her skirts and ran, disappearing into the country club building as the first police sirens wailed in the distance. The next few hours passed in a blur of statements and questions. The police arrested Michael, who had stopped struggling and adopted a stummy silence. The guests slowly dispersed, leaving behind scattered programs and abandoned champagne glasses. The catering staff stood awkwardly by the reception tent, wondering if they should start packing up the uneaten feast. Mom refused to look at me, focusing instead on calling guests to apologize. Dad swung between thanking me for catching the theft and berating me for my timing. Couldn't you have found another way? He demanded as we sat in his study later that evening. Did you have to destroy your sister's wedding to expose him? Would you have believed me any other way? I asked quietly. You didn't listen when I tried to tell you before. He had no answer for that. The sun was setting when I finally went looking for Emma. I found her in our old treehouse, still in her wedding dress. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She didn't acknowledge me as I climbed up, my bridesmaid dress catching on the rough wood. I know you hate me right now, I said, sitting cross-legged on the wooden floor. But I couldn't let him steal from us and then become part of our family. I loved him, she whispered, staring out the small window. I really loved him. I know. Did you enjoy it? Finally being right about something. Finally being the center of attention. Emma, that's not fair. Fair? She laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? I'm the one who has to call everyone tomorrow and explain why my wedding photos will never be delivered. I'm the one who has to return all these gifts. I'm the one who has to live with everyone's pity and whispers. You get to be the hero who saved the family business while I'm just the idiot who fell for a con man. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Don't, she said, just don't. I need you to leave me alone now. For a long time. I climbed down from the treehouse as the stars began to appear, leaving my sister alone with her shattered dreams and ruined wedding dress. I'd done the right thing. I knew that in my bones, but as I walked back to the house, I wondered if doing the right thing would cost me my sister forever. The week after the wedding was like walking through a minefield. Every phone call, every email, every encounter with family members felt loaded with potential explosions. The story had spread through our small business community like wildfire. The dramatic wedding objection, the stolen millions, the runaway groom in handcuffs. I threw myself into damage control at the company. The forensic accountants I'd hired were now working openly, tracking every penny Michael had touched. The total damage was worse than I'd initially thought, closer to $2.4 million when you counted the subtle manipulation of our inventory systems. He was brilliant in a way, Mark, the lead forensic accountant, admitted as we reviewed the findings. He created a shadow system that skimmed small amounts from hundreds of transactions. Most people would never have caught it. But I did. I said quietly, staring at the complex web of transfers displayed on my monitor. Yes, you did. He paused, shuffling his papers. Though I have to ask, why the wedding? Why not bring this to us or the authorities earlier? I've been asking myself the same question every night since. Would you believe me if I said it was the only way to make my family see the truth? He didn't respond, but his expression said enough. The police investigation revealed more ugly truths. Michael had done this before. 3 other companies, 3 other states. He changed his name each time, created new identities, wormed his way into businesses through charm and technical expertise. We weren't his first victims, just his biggest score so far. Dad threw himself into recovery efforts, working longer hours than his doctor recommended. I caught him sleeping at his desk more than once, spreadsheets and legal documents scattered around him. The heart medication bottles on his desk seemed to multiply each week. I should have listened to you, he said one night, looking older than I'd ever seen him. When you tried to tell me, I was so convinced he was good for the business, good for Emma. I didn't want to see it. Dad, you need to rest, I urged, trying to take the papers from his hands. Your heart. My heart? He laughed bitterly. My heart broke watching my daughter's wedding fall apart. My heart breaks every time I see Emma's face. My heart breaks knowing I let this happen to our family. Mom took a different approach to coping. She became obsessed with erasing all evidence that the wedding had ever been planned. She donated the flowers to a local hospital, returned every gift, and I caught her burning the wedding album proofs in the backyard one evening. Mom, stop, I said, grabbing her arm as she reached for another photo. Emma might want these someday. Why? She snapped, yanking away from me. To remember how her sister humiliated her in front of everyone we know. To remember that sometimes the truth hurts, but lies hurt more. She turned away, but not before I saw the tears in her eyes. Your sister hasn't left her apartment in days. She won't answer my calls. She's having panic attacks again, like in high school. Was your truth worth that? The question haunted me. Emma had moved into a small apartment across town, using her savings to break the lease on the house she and Michael had rented. She wasn't answering calls or texts from anyone in the family. Her assistant at work told me she'd taken indefinite leave. I tried visiting her once, armed with her favorite comfort foods, Thai takeout and chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. I could hear movement inside her apartment, but she never came to the door. After an hour of sitting in the hallway, I left the food and a note. I'm sorry it had to happen this way. I love you. The next day, I found the note slipped under my office door, torn into tiny pieces. The legal proceedings moved forward. Michael's preliminary hearing was set for next month. Our lawyers were confident about the criminal case, but recovering the money would be more complicated. He'd hidden it well, spreading it across multiple offshore accounts. You'll need to testify, our lawyer, James Patterson, explained during a family meeting. All of you, we need to show how he infiltrated the company, gained your trust, accessed the accounts. Emma, who had been forced to attend by Dad, spoke for the first time that day. So not only did I have to be humiliated at my own wedding, now I have to relive it in court. Emma, Dad started, but she cut him off. No, I want to know, did Alex consider this part? When she was planning her big revelation, did she think about how I'd have to sit in front of strangers and admit I was too stupid to see what my fiancé really was? That's not fair, I protested. I was protecting our family. You were protecting the money, she shouted, standing up so suddenly her chair toppled backward. That's all you've ever cared about, the business, the numbers, being right. Well, congratulations, Alex. You were right. He was a thief. I was wrong. I was blind. Is that what you wanted to hear? The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should take a break. No need, Emma said, gathering her purse. I'm done. Send me whatever I need to sign. I'll do it. But I don't want to be in the same room with her anymore. She walked out, leaving behind the kind of silence that feels like a scream. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about a conversation Michael and I had had months ago, before I discovered the theft. We'd been at a company party and he pulled me aside. You know, Alex, he'd said, his words slightly slurred from champagne, you and I are alike. We both see the world in systems, patterns. Your sister, your parents, they see what they want to see. But we see what's really there. At the time, I'd taken it as a compliment, a recognition of our shared analytical mindset. Now I wondered, had he been testing me, warning me, or just gloating that he fooled everyone but me? I got up and went to my home office, pulling out the files I'd gathered on Michael. There was something I was missing, some pattern I hadn't quite grasped. As I spread the documents across my desk, a small detail caught my eye. A recurring transfer, too small to raise alarms, to an account I hadn't investigated yet. My hands shaking, I started digging deeper. What I found made my blood run cold. Michael hadn't been working alone. The discovery hit me like a physical blow. Those small, regular transfers went to an account registered to Sarah Chen, Michael's sister, the same sister who had supposedly died in a car accident years ago, according to the sob story he told Emma, the same tragic tale that had made my sister fall even harder for him. I spent the night building a new file of evidence, my hands shaking as I connected the dots. Sarah wasn't just alive, she was Michael's partner in crime. In every company they targeted, she'd been there in the background, usually as a low-level accountant or bookkeeper, helping him navigate the financial systems. At 6 a.m., I called our lawyer. By 8 a.m., the police had a new lead. By noon, they'd arrested Sarah Chen at a small airport in Mexico, attempting to flee with nearly $500,000 in cash. But it was what I did at 2 p.m. that would change everything. I drove to Emma's apartment, armed with the new evidence. This time, when she ignored my knocking, I sat down in the hallway and started talking through the door. Do you remember when we were kids? I began and I caught Tommy Anderson passing you fake love notes from Julie Peters. You were so angry at me for telling you the truth. You didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Silence from the apartment, but I could sense her listening. You told Mom I was just jealous because Tommy liked you better, but I knew he was playing with your feelings, and it hurt me to watch it happen. I pulled out the file, even though she couldn't see it. This is like that, Em. Only 1,000,000 times worse. The door cracked open. Emma stood there, wearing old sweatpants and one of Dad's ancient business shirts. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair unbrushed. What do you want, Alex? I held up the file. Michael had a partner. His sister Sarah, the one he said died in that car crash, she's very much alive. They've done this before, targeting family businesses, playing on sympathies. You weren't stupid, Em. You were targeted. They chose you because you're kind, because you believe in people, because you see the best in everyone. They used your best qualities against you. Her hands trembled as she took the file, flipping through the pages. I watched her face as she absorbed the truth, the fake death certificates, the pattern of fraud across multiple states, the carefully orchestrated con that had turned her life upside down. He said. Her voice cracked. He said I was the first person he'd opened up to since losing her. That sharing his grief with me helped him heal. I know. I hate him, she whispered, then louder, I hate him. She hurled the file against the wall, papers scattering like confetti. Then she crumpled, and I caught her before she hit the floor. We sat there in her doorway, holding each other and crying like we used to when we were little girls. For the first time since the wedding, she let me comfort her. Why didn't you tell me privately? She asked finally, her voice muffled against my shoulder. Would you have believed me? Really? She was quiet for a long moment. No, she admitted. I was too in love with the idea of him, with the perfect life we planned. I needed the shock of public exposure to see the truth. The next few months were a blur of court appearances and recovery efforts. Sarah Chen's arrest led to the recovery of most of the stolen money. She turned on her brother in exchange for a lighter sentence, revealing their entire operation. Dad installed new security systems and hired a full-time fraud prevention team. Mom finally stopped trying to erase the wedding from existence and started focusing on healing our family instead. We began having weekly dinners again. this time with more honest conversations and fewer perfect facades. Emma threw herself into therapy and gradually returned to work. She started a support group for other fraud victims, turning her pain into purpose. Sometimes late at night, she'd call me just to talk, like we used to. "I'm not angry anymore," she told me one evening, 6 months after the wedding that wasn't. "I mean, I'm still angry at him, at them. But not at you. You did what you had to do." "I never wanted to hurt you," I said. "I know, but sometimes the truth has to hurt before it can heal." A year later, I found the torn pieces of my note, the one I'd left with the Thai food, caked back together and framed on Emma's wall. Below it, she added her own words. "Thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth, even when it broke both our hearts." Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed silent, if I'd let the wedding happen. Our family might still look perfect on the outside, but we'd be broken on the inside. Instead, we're stronger now, more real. We've learned that love sometimes means telling hard truths, and that family isn't about keeping up appearances. It's about keeping each other honest. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts.